You think assassinating an emperor requires unmatched martial skills and an army of thousands. Wrong. A desperate cook, armed with nothing but a chipped kitchen knife, almost changed the course of the Qing dynasty. Let's slip into that cook's mind and see the perilous path he took under the iron walls of the Forbidden City. A cook assassinating an emperor? To Jia Qing, it was the biggest joke in the world, until that chipped knife nearly pierced his heart. Your name is Chen Day, once a cook in the imperial kitchen. After your wife's death, you were buried in debt, and your daughter came down with consumption. With nowhere to turn, you stumbled upon a jade hairpin carved with the words, "Mandate of Heaven," and dreamed of yourself wearing the emperor's robes. When your assassination attempt failed, you pretended to be insane, only to meet the prince behind the scheme in the Ministry of Justice's prison. He promised to spare your daughter's life, but the price was to confess to all the crimes of treason. On the execution platform, you saw your tiny daughter dragged toward the brothel while the prince smiled at you. As the final blade fell, you finally saw the face beneath the dragon robe. It was identical to your own. The morning light in the Forbidden City was always cold, especially at the end of this leap year, February. That thin, ashen light squeezed through the cracks between the towering palace walls, tumbling onto the frozen golden bricks inside Shenwu Gate, like dirty snow splashed across the ground. The air reeked of the metallic tang of night dew, mixed with the musty smell of old wood and dust. It pressed down on your chest, making it hard to breathe. The heavy thud of the palace gates, the shrill, drawn-out announcements of eunuchs, the icy clang of armor rubbing together all these sounds, wrapped in the biting morning wind, reached your ears as if muffled by thick cotton. Your name is Chen Day. Just days ago, the greasy, round face of the head cook in the imperial kitchen was sneering at you, spitting saliva as he barked, "Get lost! We don't feed useless mouths here, especially not unlucky ones." You were kicked out, tossed like a filthy rag. The few pitiful coins in your bundle clinked together the last of your wife's belongings, her plain silver hairpin pawned away. That money wasn't even enough to buy your daughter, Little Ya, a proper dose of medicine. At home, all that was left were 4 drafty walls and Little Ya's wrenching, hollow cough, each one cutting into your already numb heart like a dull blade. Despair, like icy vines, had long since wrapped around your bones. Last night, the murky waters of the city moat rippled before your eyes, bottomless and tempting you to jump. Just as you were ready to sink yourself into that black water, your toes struck something hard in the mud by the bank. Instinctively, you dug it out. In the dim lantern light from the city wall, you barely made it out a hairpin. Jade. Smooth and warm and even caked in mud, it radiated a strange sense of value. The carving on the tip was intricate and otherworldly. Bringing it close to your eyes, you froze, your heart seized by an icy grip. The raised pattern spelled 2 characters, "Mandate of Heaven." Those words burned through your despair like a branding iron. Without thinking, you clenched the hairpin in your palm. Its icy touch seeped into your skin, yet brought with it an eerie warmth. Back in your freezing shack, Little Ya lay curled in a pile of ragged bedding, coughing violently, her tiny body shaking so hard it split your heart in 2. You wrapped her cold little hand in your own equally frozen palm and pressed the jade hairpin into her damp fingers, as if it were the only lifeline you could hold on to. In a haze, you drifted off to sleep. In the dream, there was no broken shack, no sickness, only a blinding light that made it impossible to open your eyes. You looked down, your patched coarse shirt was gone, replaced by imperial yellow, the color only the true son of heaven could wear. The dragon-embroidered sleeves were heavy and perfect, and a burning, unstoppable power surged from the soles of your feet to the top of your head. You sat high on a throne of gold, looking down on a sea of people, all bowing. The thunderous cries of, "Long live the Emperor!" crashed in your ears, lifting you toward the heavens. A rush of ecstasy, absolute and unshakable, drowned out your every thought. Dad, Dad. The faint whimper, like a kitten's cry, stabbed through that glorious dream like an icy needle. You jolted awake. Your heart was pounding as if it would leap out of your throat. Above you was the same broken roof, spider webs trembling in the draft. Little Ya lay in your arms, her face burning red, lips cracked, the cold jade hairpin pressing against your arm. In her half-open eyes, clouded tears and unbearable pain welled up. Dad, cold hurts. Every broken syllable pierced the deepest part of your heart like a poisoned needle. The dream's golden robe still scorched your mind, but reality's cold cut straight into your bones. The words, "mandate of heaven," echoed like a ghostly whisper, stirring waves of fury in your lifeless heart. Why? Why are some born in the clouds, wearing dragon robes, receiving the worship of all, while you and your little Ya must crawl in the mud, waiting for death in sickness? That golden robe, that power over all beings, a thought, wild and bloody, coiled around your heart like a venomous vine. If the world leaves me no way to live, then I'll shake the heavens. Boiling lava, mixed with despair and madness, surged through your veins, burning away the last shred of reason. You shot to your feet, your gaze fixed on the corner of the room. There it lay, your chipped kitchen knife, once used for chopping meat and wood. Its edge was jagged, covered with rust like an ugly scar. You grabbed it, the cold hilt pressed against your burning palm, its roughness giving you a twisted sense of certainty. You gave little Ya one last look, gently tucking her thin, frail hand under the torn quilt, as if placing fragile porcelain. Then you turned, a silent shadow melting into the dim dawn of a still sleeping Beijing. Inside Shenwu Gate, the towering palace walls cut off the mortal world. Massive shadows swallowed the feeble light, leaving only a ruthless chill. The golden brick ground was cold as iron, reflecting the crimson walls above. The ceremonial guards stood in formation, their polished armor gleaming, swords hanging at their waists. They stood like nails on both sides of the imperial path, their young faces taut, eyes sharp as they scanned the empty corridor. The air felt frozen. Only the faint tinkling of the roof eaves in the wind broke the silence, making it all the more suffocating. You crouched, like the lowest of ants, hiding in the corner of the watchhouse's shadow by the west side of Shenwu Gate. The filthy, grease-stained work robe you wore, the uniform of a lowly palace laborer, was the only disguise you could find to sneak into this heavily guarded place. Cold sweat soaked through your inner shirt, clinging to your back like glue. Each heartbeat slammed against your chest like a drum, pounding so hard it made your ears buzz. Your hand gripped the chipped knife hidden in your sleeve so tightly the rough wooden handle nearly cut into your palm. That tiny, stinging pain was the only thing anchoring you against the suffocating fear. Your eyes, sharp as poisoned hooks, were fixed on the massive, weathered panels of Shenwu Gate. Finally, creak boom! The heavy palace gates groaned open, the sound grating on your teeth. A procession of bright yellow ceremonial guards slowly filed through the archway, like a majestic golden dragon gliding into a deep pool. The dragon-embroidered canopy glared under the cold morning light. At the center, a massive, warm sedan chair, draped in imperial yellow, was carried steadily by 16 robust eunuchs as they entered the courtyard. The curtains hung low and tight, as if they held the heart of the entire empire within. The guards tightened their stance like drawn bowstrings, eyes scanning every suspicious shadow with renewed vigilance. Now, a hot surge of rage and the stench of blood and sulfur rushed to your head, burning away the last trace of hesitation. Like a beast driven into a corner, you let out a guttural, animalistic roar and exploded from the shadows with a burst of strength you didn't know you had. There was only one target, the dazzling yellow sedan. "Who goes there?" "Protect His Majesty." The sharp, panicked shouts cracked like thunder. The nearest guards froze for a split second, shocked by the sudden attack. The blood drained from their faces, hands fumbling for their sword hilts too slow by half a beat. That brief hesitation was heaven's gift. You poured every ounce of strength into your legs, an arrow of despair bursting from the bow, knocking aside a eunuch in your path and lunging straight for the sedan. The eunuch's fat face, twisted with terror, flashed past your eyes. The sedan curtains were right there. You could smell the expensive blend of sandalwood and dragon musk wafting from it. The chipped knife slid from your sleeve, its jagged tip glinting coldly, filled with all your hatred and madness. You drove it hard toward the shadowy figure inside. Thump! The blade pierced the thick brocade curtain. But the resistance was far greater than you expected. The curtain was lined with tough leather. The knife sank in barely an inch before hitting something as tough as old hide, refusing to budge further. The violent rebound jarred your wrist with a searing pain. Ah! A high-pitched, terrified scream burst from within the sedan, filled with disbelief and fear, shattering all imperial dignity. Then came a heavy thud, as if something toppled inside. The curtain was suddenly thrown aside! A figure, clad in a bright, yellow dragon-patterned robe and a casual hat, tumbled out, rolling onto the golden bricks in a heap. His once dignified, well-kept face was now twisted by sheer terror, pale as paper, lips trembling. It was none other than the Emperor Jiaqing himself. His hat was askew, nearly falling off. One of his yellow silk boots had come off, exposing his yellow socks. He collapsed on the ground, pointing at you with a trembling hand, his throat making a rasping sound but no words. Your strike had missed, yet your target was right there. Blood rushed to your eyes as you yanked the knife free from the curtain and charged at the fallen figure again. The dragon robe! That blinding yellow was the only thing you saw. Traitor, how dare you? A thunderous roar exploded by your ear. A fierce wind slammed into you, a tall figure, like a tiger pouncing from the mountains, hurled himself at you with deadly force. It was Prince Mianon. The Emperor's nephew was in his prime, fast as lightning. He didn't even have time to draw his sword. He used his entire body as a weapon, ramming into your knife arm. Thud, the impact echoed. Your right arm felt like it had been struck by an iron hammer. Pain shot through half your body, bones threatening to splinter. You could no longer hold on to the knife. It flew from your hand with a metallic clang, landing a few steps away, bouncing like a dying fish. The powerful blow knocked you off balance, sending you stumbling to the side. At that instant, another figure closed in like a ghost. Imperial Guard, Danba Dorji! The Mongol warrior's eyes were as fierce as a wolf's. Seizing your moment of imbalance, he lunged, his arm locking around your throat like an iron band. A crushing wave of suffocation drowned you, and blackness swam before your eyes. Ugh. You roared like a wounded beast, survival instincts overriding everything. Your body convulsed with one last surge of strength. Your nails dug viciously into Danba Dorji's arm, your legs kicking wildly. In the chaos, your foot struck his midsection hard. He grunted, his grip loosening just slightly. That was all you needed. You jerked your head down and slammed the back of your skull into his face like a mad bull, throwing your entire weight downward. Ugh. Dambadorji, caught off guard, felt a sharp pain explode in his nose, and warm liquid gushed out. His arm slackened again. You seized the chance, wrenching yourself halfway free, rolling onto the ground, your eyes instinctively searching for the fallen knife. There, it was just steps away. Seize him! Take him alive or dead! Jiaqing, supported by scrambling eunuchs, pointed at you and screamed hoarsely, his voice cracking, all imperial composure gone, replaced by sheer rage and terror. More guards swarmed in like a rising tide. Sword hilts, fists, boots, blows rained down on you like a storm. Pain stabbed through your body like countless red-hot needles. You rolled and curled on the ground, your gaze fixed desperately on the knife growing farther and farther away. A strangled growl of a cornered beast rising from your throat. Amid the chaos, you glimpsed Prince Mianin clutching his bleeding arm, his face dark with fury. Dambadorji wiped the blood from his face, his wolfish eyes burning even fiercer as he lunged again. Your vision filled with boots and flashing blades. At last, the dark tide of despair swallowed you whole. The last sensation was a crushing blow to the back of your head. Darkness fell. You lost all feeling. Something cold, sticky, reeking of blood and filth, trickled down your face, dripping onto the damp straw beneath you. A piercing chill stabbed through your bones like 1,000 needles. You shuddered violently and snapped your eyes open. Darkness. A suffocating, endless darkness. A palm-sized iron-barred window high above let in a thin beam of dim, yellowish light, barely outlining this cramped space low, narrow, with walls made of rough, cold stones slick with moss. The air was so foul it made you gag, reeking of rust, rot, and the sickly sweet stench of festering wounds. Every breath felt like swallowing a cold blade. It was as if every bone in your body had shattered, every inch of flesh screaming in relentless protest. The rough, heavy iron shackles on your wrists and ankles had rubbed your skin raw, burning with pain. The Ministry of Justice's prison, a death row cell. The realization drenched the last remnants of your consciousness like icy water. It was over. Completely over. Clang! With an ear-piercing screech of metal, the rust-eaten door of the cell was yanked open. Two hulking, expressionless wardens' faces like stone stepped inside, carrying a whip soaked in cold water and a heavy wooden club. Like dragging a dead dog, they hauled you from the stinking pile of straw, hoisting your arms as they dragged you out. Beyond the cell was a dark, damp corridor lined with a few flickering torches. The flames cast eerie shadows over the mottled brown stains on the walls, impossible to tell whether it was old blood or watermarks. At the end of the corridor was a larger stone chamber. In the center lay instruments of terror you had only glimpsed in nightmares, finger crushers, fire pits, iron hooks, spiked boards. The air was thick with the sickly scent of scorched flesh, almost choking you. They slammed you onto a blood-stained bench, iron rings instantly clamping down on your wrists and ankles. "Speak! Who sent you? Who else is in league with you? Why did you try to kill His Majesty?" A shrill voice, like that of a night owl, echoed through the stone chamber, laced with cruel excitement. The interrogator was a gaunt official of the Ministry of Justice, his triangular eyes gleaming like a snake's in the dim firelight. He twirled a red-hot iron rod in his hand, the heat almost brushing your face. Fear coiled around your heart like a venomous serpent, squeezing until it might burst. You knew exactly what was coming. The jade hairpin hidden deep within your ragged clothes burned against your skin like a branding iron. "No, You couldn't confess. Never. A confession meant death for your entire bloodline. Little Ya, your only little Ya, she would be dragged into the brothel, doomed to a fate worse than death. A guttural rasp escaped your throat as you struggled to gather what was left of your wits. One thought cut through the pain and terror with razor clarity. Act mad. Only a madman could deny all premeditation, and maybe, just maybe, leave the faintest chance for little Ya to live. No matter how slim that chance. Mandate, the yellow robe, the throne, they're all mine. You suddenly jerked your head up, bloodshot eyes bulging as you glared at the interrogator. A twisted, deranged grin split your face, drool dripping from your chin. I dreamed I wore the yellow robe. Ha! I am the chosen son of heaven. Kill him, take the throne, take the throne! You began thrashing violently, chains clanging as your body twisted and slammed against the bench with dull, hollow thuds. You looked every bit the madman. Playing crazy, huh? The interrogator's triangular eyes narrowed, a cruel delight flashing across his face. Fine. Bring the finger press. The burly wardens grinned wickedly as they brought out a heavy wooden frame with deep grooves, stained with dark filth. They jammed it over your fingers. Tighten! The interrogator barked, and the wardens yanked. The rope's tight. Ah. The pain that exploded from your fingers was beyond words. It was as if countless red-hot needles were driven into your bones, or as if massive iron pliers were grinding and tearing each joint apart. The agony was so sharp, so overwhelming, it shattered every scrap of your act and willpower. A scream, raw and inhuman, tore from your throat, echoing wildly in the cold chamber. Your body convulsed like a fish out of water, but the iron rings held you fast. Sweat, tears, and snot streamed down your face as your vision darkened, stars bursting before your eyes. Speak! Will you talk? The interrogator's voice was like poisoned ice. Mandate yellow robe. All you had left were broken, sobbing murmurs, your mind teetering on the edge of pain. You could only mumble the crazed fragments. My throne kill. Tough bones, huh? You won't cry till you see the coffin. Then, let's see how you like the branding iron. The interrogator's patience snapped, his eyes flashing with malice. The wardens pulled a glowing iron rod from the fire pit, its searing tip crackling as the air around it shimmered from the heat. The scorching breath of death rushed toward you, aimed at your chest, just as the iron was about to sear your flesh. Stop! A deep, commanding voice rang out from the doorway like the toll of a heavy bell, brooking no argument. Though not loud, the voice carried a strange force that froze every movement in the chamber. The interrogator's cruel grin stiffened. The warden with the branding iron halted mid-swing, eyes darting toward the doorway in alarm. The heavy door swung open silently. A figure stepped inside, clad in an understated yet exquisite black silk robe, over which draped a dark purple sable cloak. No ornament or embroidery adorned him, yet he exuded unnatural authority and an indescribable pressure. In the flickering firelight, his face was partly shadowed, but his eyes, deep as frozen pools, swept the room, finally resting on your face, twisted by pain and fear. His gaze lingered on you, assessing, weighing, and perhaps probing with a hint of something strange and unreadable. When the interrogator recognized him, his face drained of color. His vicious expression melted into terrified deference. Practically scrambling on hands and knees, he bowed deeply, his voice trembling. Your Highness, why have you come to such a filthy place? It's unworthy of you." The newcomer ignored the flattery, merely lifting his hand slightly for silence. His eyes remained fixed on you as he walked closer, each step slow and steady. His boots struck the wet, cold floor with a soft thud, yet each sound felt like a hammer blow to your heart. As he drew closer, you finally saw his face, clearly a middle-aged man's face, impeccably maintained, with fine, elegant features, but a shadow of brooding darkness lingered between his brows, a depth of calculation that seemed unfathomable, especially those eyes calm on the surface, yet hiding a whirlpool that could swallow everything. Prince Yonglin, the younger brother of Emperor Jiaqing. The realization struck your chaotic mind like a bolt of lightning. He stopped 2 steps away, looking down at you from above. You were strapped to the torture bench, drenched in sweat and blood, your 10 fingers screaming with searing pain. You could barely lift your eyelids to meet his abyssal gaze. There was no anger there, no contempt. Only a cold measuring look, as if he were appraising an object. Chen Day. Prince Yonglin spoke. His voice was low but cut cleanly through your pain-clouded mind, carrying a strange penetrating force. The cook, expelled from the imperial kitchen? Your throat rasped with a hoarse, guttural sound as you tried to speak, but only blood-flecked saliva came out. Prince Yonglin didn't seem to require your answer. He tilted his head slightly and whispered something to a sharp-eyed attendant who stood like a shadow behind him. The attendant bowed silently and left quickly. The chamber fell into an eerie silence, broken only by the crackle of the torches and your ragged, painful breathing. The interrogator and warden stood motionless, not daring to breathe. Prince Yonglin's gaze roamed across your face, as if searching for something, or confirming something. That gaze was as cold as a blade, chilling you to the bone. Time dragged on in silence and agony, each breath as long as a century. Finally, the heavy door creaked open again. The sharp-eyed attendant returned, holding a scroll. He strode forward and presented the scroll with a bow. Prince Yonglin didn't unroll it. He merely let his slender fingers brush over its smooth surface, while his gaze remained fixed on you, as if whatever was written on that scroll had everything to do with you. The corner of his mouth moved slightly, not a smile, but more like an icy, all-seeing mockery. I hear. Prince Yonglin spoke again, his voice calm, but each word striking like drops of ice into your ears. You have a daughter, Xiaoya, only 8 years old, gravely ill, consumption. Boom! Your remaining consciousness exploded like cold water thrown into boiling oil. Xiaoya. He mentioned Xiaoya. How did he know? A surge of terror gripped you, sharper than any torture, tearing your guts apart. You thrashed violently, the chains rattling as you screamed with all you had. You stay away from my daughter. She's innocent. She's innocent. Your voice, raw and desperate, echoed off the chamber walls. Prince Yonglin watched your sudden eruption of terror and frenzy, his expression unshaken, if anything carrying a trace of expected coldness. He slowly paced a few steps away, turning his back to you, his voice steady and merciless, like the hand of death itself. Treason of this magnitude warrants the execution of 9 clans by law. The young girl will be sent to the brothel as a slave. The 3 words, brothel house, seared into your soul like red-hot irons. You could see Xiaoya's pale little face, see her dragged into that filthy, vile place, surrounded by leering, filthy hands. No, never. That was worse than death 1,000 times over. No. You let out a dying beast wail, tears and blood streaming down your face. Kill me! Kill me, but don't touch her! She's innocent! She knows nothing! All your pretense, all your mad babbling, collapsed instantly under the naked threat. Prince Yonglin slowly turned back, his black robe flowing like congealed shadow in the dim torchlight. He came closer again, stopping right in front of you, his eyes, dark as deep pools, staring into your tear-streaked, broken face. His voice dropped to a venomous whisper meant for your ears alone, can give you a choice. You stopped howling, your bloodshot eyes locking onto him as if he were the last straw you could grasp. His gaze slid over your bloodied fingers, over your face contorted by despair, as he spoke, each word sharp and cold. Take all the blame! Say you're the mastermind! No one else is involved! Claim you attacked the Emperor out of madness, raving about the mandate of heaven, only to mask your insanity and resentment toward the court. He paused, the quiet tone carrying a bone-freezing menace. As long as you repeat my words, sign the confession exactly as written, I will spare your daughter's life. I'll send her to a remote place, hidden under a new name, to live out her days. Otherwise, the matrons of the brothel will take good care of that sickly girl. His eyes stabbed into yours like icy spikes. A choice? There was no choice. One path led to your daughter's damnation, worse than death. The other, a faint and fragile hope of life, demanded you bear the weight of this monstrous crime, your body broken, your soul damned. And yet, that faint hope was all there was. Your body shook like a leaf, not from fear, but from the unbearable pain of making this decision. Your teeth sank into your lip, filling your mouth with the taste of blood. Prince Yonglin's abyssal gaze crushed your last struggle and hope like twin glaciers. Your voice cracked, dry and hoarse like rusted metal. I confess, the moment that word left your mouth, you felt your soul shatter. The last bit of strength drained from your body, leaving you slumped on the icy bench like a pile of broken flesh, held together only by the dragging weight of chains. All the screams, the defiance, the feigned madness were gone, replaced by a boundless, suffocating despair. The pain in your fingers still stabbed deep, but it was now just a numb echo. In Prince Yonglin's eyes, that cold, commanding light only grew stronger. He no longer looked at you, as if you were nothing more than garbage already disposed of. Tilting his head slightly, he addressed the interrogator, whose face was pale with fear. Did you hear? Have him sign the confession. Write it as I said. Mad ravings about the mandate of heaven, attacking the Emperor to seek death. His tone was flat, but brooked no refusal. Yes, I understand, Your Highness. I'll see to it at once. The interrogator, as if granted amnesty, bowed repeatedly, his voice trembling uncontrollably. He immediately ordered the wardens to release one of your barely functioning hands, then brought over a prepared confession document and a brush dripping with black ink. Your hand shook like a leaf in the wind, almost unable to hold the brush. That thin piece of paper felt as heavy as a mountain, every character on it like molten iron burning through your eyes. You dared not read the contents. Relying solely on your last shred of instinct, you dipped your bloodied, trembling fingers in ink and pressed down hard at the marked spot. A bright red, blood-like fingerprint bloomed on the paper. At the moment you left that mark, you seemed to hear a faint sigh, barely louder than the wind, though you couldn't tell if it came from this inscrutable prince or from your own already dead soul. Prince Yonglin's gaze lingered on that crimson fingerprint for a heartbeat, something complex and unreadable flickering in his eyes, too quick to grasp. Then he returned to his cold, impassive composure, like a still pond. Without another word, as if even staying a moment longer here sullied him, he turned. The arc of his dark cloak cut decisively through the dim air as he left the blood-stained, hopeless chamber with his sharp-eyed attendant as silently as they had come. The heavy cell door slammed shut again, shutting out the last trace of dim light. along with your last glimmer of hope. Darkness swallowed everything once more, leaving only your ragged breathing and the cold bite of iron chains. Your body was broken, your soul dead. The jade hairpin marked Mandate of Heaven, still hidden against your feverish chest, felt like a block of eternal ice burning into your heart. Dawn had yet to break fully. A heavy, ashen sky pressed low over the towering walls of the Forbidden City, suffocating the air. At the T-shaped street in front of the Shisi archway, crowds had already gathered, a sea of silent, lifeless faces. Soldiers with long spears formed strict barricades, forcing the dense crowd back. The air was thick, with a suffocating mixture of fear, curiosity, and a morbid excitement. Every neck stretched, every gaze fixed on the makeshift platform at the center of the street. Built from rough logs, its thick planks were stained dark brown from countless washings that could not erase the marks. A thick wooden post stood in the middle, bound with ropes crusted with old, dried blood. Several large water vats stood at the corners, ice floating on their surface, misting with cold vapor. A few executioners in crimson prison uniforms, faces blank and eyes dead, busied themselves with final preparations. The harsh scraping of blades against whetstones sounded unnervingly loud and sinister in the still air. Strange, gleaming knives, hooks, and iron brushes jutted from the leather pouches at their waists. Two burly officers dragged you forward, step by step, toward the platform. The heavy kangbu pressed down on you, forcing your head low. The shackles on your ankles clanked against the ground, each metallic clang sounding like a step onto the edge of a blade. You wore only a thin, filthy white prisoner's robe, offering no defense against the biting chill of the late autumn dawn. The crushing pressure of the kang on your fingers still sent sharp jolts of pain, reminders of the endless torment in the torture chamber, but you no longer felt the cold or pain. Your soul seemed gone, leaving only a broken shell moving mechanically forward, while the stares of the crowd pierced your back like 1,000 needles. Low, stifled murmurs hummed like a swarm of flies, words blending into a dull roar that filled your ears. "That's him. The cook? Tsk. What nerve must have eaten a leopard skull? They say he's crazy. Dreamed of being the emperor? Crazy? I don't think so, maybe." "Shh. Do you want to die?" "Ah, poor man. I heard he has a sickly little girl." "Xiaoya." The name split your numb mind like lightning. Your heart clenched violently. Prince Yonglin. His promise. He swore he'd spare Xiaoya. That was your one fragile hope for accepting this death sentence. You jerked your head up, bloodshot eyes darting wildly through the slit of the kangyu. Over the sea of heads, past the cold points of the soldiers' spears, you searched desperately, searching for that dark-robed, unfathomable figure. Searching for any sign that he would keep his word. Nothing, no sign of Prince Yonglin. Around the platform were only the cold, hard faces of the execution officials, the indifferent eyes of the executioners, the tense soldiers ready for anything, and the blank or excited expressions of the spectators. The ice water of despair drowned you once again as the officers shoved you up the platform, the cold, blood-stained planks pressed against your bare feet. The executioners closed in, unfastening the kangyu and shackles. The chill of the metal scraped against your skin. Just then, "Move aside! Official business! Clear the way!" Rough shouts and commotion erupted from beyond the barricades. Your bare torso shivered under the cold air as the executioners prepared to bind you to the blood-stained post. Instinctively, you looked toward the disturbance. The crowd split like a blade cutting through cloth. A few fierce-faced officers in black uniforms shoved the people aside, dragging with them a small, frail figure, as thin and weak as the last withered leaf of autumn. The child wore an oversized, patch-covered gray jacket. Her little face was pale as death, dark shadows under her sunken eyes. She looked too weak to stand, being half-dragged like a chick by one of the officers, her tiny feet scraping across the icy ground. Harsh coughing racked her thin body, curling her up in pain. Each cough seemed to drain the last ounce of strength from her. Her tiny shoulders shook as if they would shatter at any moment. It was your Xiao Ya. Jiao Ya. A shriek ripped from your throat. Not human, but a dying beast's cry, tearing through the dead silence of the execution ground. In that instant, all numbness, all resignation shattered completely. Your eyes bulged with fury, blood vessels bursting in them. All the blood in your body seemed to surge to your head, burning away the last shred of reason. Let her go. Let her go. Prince! Prince Yonglin! You promised! You promised me! You thrashed wildly, ignoring the executioners gripping your bare arms, like a wounded beast pushed past its limits, unleashing a surge of terrifying strength. One of the executioners, caught off guard, was thrown back by your violent shove. Dogs! Liars! Prince Yonglin! Yonglin, come out, show yourself! Your bloodshot eyes glared at the bleak sky and the dark sea of faces, spitting out curses filled with the deepest despair and venom. Every word was a cry of blood-soaked accusation. The commotion spread. The crowd, stunned by the sudden outburst, erupted in frantic murmurs. The supervising officer's face turned pale, and he shouted sharply, "Treason! Quickly! Pin him down! Gag him!" More executioners lunged at you, their thick arms like iron clamps crushing your body. A filthy rag, stinking of sweat and blood, was forced into your mouth, choking off your screams. You could only emit muffled, desperate cries. As they pinned you hard against the cold wooden post, coarse ropes biting deep into your flesh as they wound tightly around you. At that very moment, when the chaos, the struggle, and the despair reached their breaking point, your gaze was suddenly drawn, as if by an invisible force, to the front of the platform. There stood the supervising officer and the commanding soldiers. Behind them, in a tea house across the street, a carved window on the second floor stood half open. A figure stood quietly by the window. A dark silk robe, a deep purple sable cloak. It was Prince Yonglin. He stood behind the half-lit window, his silhouette slightly blurred, but you saw him. You saw him clearly. He was watching this gruesome spectacle, watching you being pinned down, gagged, and bound to the post in hopeless struggle. What froze your blood instantly was his lips were curved ever so slightly upward. It wasn't anger, nor pity, not even mockery. It was a pure, cold smile, like a man appreciating the final act of a brilliantly staged play, a smile of absolute control, the cruel satisfaction of seeing you fall into the deepest pits of hell, powerless and broken. That smile stabbed into your heart like a poisoned icicle, draining every last drop of warmth and strength. Little Ya's racking cough seemed to echo in your ears, mingled with the impatient curses of the officers. "Sick little brat! Bad luck! Drag her away! Send her to the brothel! Don't let her die on the way." Gagged and bound. Your body trembled violently against the ropes. Your throat emitted the muffled whimpers of a dying beast, tears mingling with blood, streaming down your face, not for your own imminent dismemberment, but for the cruel smile lurking behind that window, a smile more merciless than 1,000 cuts. The time has come. Execute. The sharp cry of the supervising officer rang out like a funeral bell, shattering the final thread of silence over the execution ground. The lead executioner, A hulking brute with a face full of scars and eyes as lifeless as stagnant water stepped forward without expression. From the leather pouch at his waist, packed with all manner of cold, gleaming blades, he drew the first knife, a long, narrow blade, thin as a willow leaf, its edge glinting faintly under the ashen sky.